We're here, day 2 of Eurogamer Expo. We're here with Bruce and Charles from Onlive to talk about the service. Good morning, guys. How are you doing?
Good morning. Doing very well.
Very well, thank you, and thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having us in. Obviously, the elephant in the room here, you've had some well-documented troubles recently with the company. So we're just wondering sort of how you're addressing that going forward, how you're trying to revisit the business model, etc.
Charlie?
Yes, we went through a transition with the company in late August, which has been well reported in the press. The good news is, in spite of all the transition and the work we've been doing behind the scenes, the service has been unaffected. Our customer levels have remained as they always have been, and the customers and game players using the service should have noticed no change whatsoever. So that's a case of no news is good news. And it's been very painful for us internally, obviously, when you have to reduce staff and refocus and do things like that. But we've gotten through this, and we've emerged better, more nimble, more focused, and proceeding toward the future with businesses and games that make sense, not just for our end consumers, but for us and our partners going forward.
So it's purely an internal change. Customers shouldn't really see anything happening with the company apart from what's been reported in the press, obviously.
Correct.
Cool, thank you. Moving on, what's sort of next for Onlive? How are you looking to expand the service and continue to grow onwards?
So a lot of what we're doing right now as we refocus internally is think about what the right business models are. We've had a company that for the last 4 years has very much shown the world that the technology is real, that cloud gaming is a viable technology, and now it's important that not just for us but there's other players in this space as well now, is there's got to be the right business models around that, and the business models have to work for the consumers, they have to work for us, they have to work for the partners and publishers that we work with. So we're doing a lot of work to go through all of those models, make sure the right things happen, and then what you'll see is certainly not maybe massively see from the outside, but as we work with people, you'll see it grow and develop and expand in the areas that make sense for this technology.
Sure, and are you committed to staying as your own platform? Is there talk about going the Gaikai route and sort of partnering with someone that way?
I think one of the things that we're discussing, or several of the things we're discussing right now internally, include all of those. What are the right things to do? How do we partner? One of the things that we want to do a lot more of is taking advantage of the partnerships around devices like smart TVs and new boxes coming out like the Ouya. And so when they arrive, there's a market that's going to be attracted and attached to all of those. And partnering with those kinds of devices makes huge sense for our technology.
So you're sort of looking at rather as a broad approach than sort of narrowing it down to one platform, going everywhere at once, which is obviously better for consumers in the long run as well, because they can play wherever they want.
Yes, and I think we'll see also multiple other ways of being able to take advantage of it. So the idea of content channels, for example, that include games. And as we get more and more into the idea of everything's a connected device, look at how IPTV's been moving in that way. And now we can bring games into that same arena. So I think you'll see the technology itself transition naturally as that moves.
Correct. And now that cloud gaming, a year ago when we started the show, everybody was scratching their head saying, does it work? I mean, obviously it proved it does work technically, and more importantly for the customer experience. And more people, as they arrive into the space, it's no longer a question of if, it's just when and how. And the thrust we have is to enable our partners, and that's both from a business sense as well as a technological sense, to enable Onlive anywhere and everywhere, easily for them and easily for us to get it out in front of more consumers as quickly as possible through devices, through content partnerships, through distribution partnerships. But again, it's got to be easy for you to use and easy for partners to embrace and have us extend our presence in front of folks.
Obviously, one of the big features of the service, you've got the Play Pack as the monthly subscription model. Have you considered sort of, is that something you're looking at perhaps expanding the content? Is it? Obviously, you have the problems of working with publishers on that end and those kind of things. But personally, that would be a model I'd be interested in. I think a lot of our viewers are quite interested in going that way as well, the sort of all-you-can-eat consumption.
Correct. I mean, we're very cognizant of our publishers' needs because they have businesses to run. But again, we've heard loud and clear that the Play Pack is something of value in both in quantity and what it's focused on. Because as you get a large number of product in there, how do you find it? How do you select it? How do consumers know and what it is? So the answer is enthusiastically yes. We're looking at various means to make Play Pack more accessible and more usable by a whole swath of users rather than the initial AAA titles that end up there.
That's great. Obviously, one of the big features is being able to go back in time, looking at older games on the service, which I feel is something that cloud gaming really excels at. And obviously, it's easier from you guys from a technological standpoint. You don't need huge powerhouses running these. Is that somewhere that you want to focus a little bit stronger, or is it equal focus on new games and old games, bringing everything to everyone?
I think it's a balance, and you have to strike that balance. But the great thing about the older games and the older titles is they attract an audience who may not be able to keep up with the current generation of gaming, and suddenly it makes it easy for them to go back, see something they know, and then brings them into the world where aliside it you could have Assassin's Creed next to Sonic the Hedgehog. So we have the Sega pack on there, for example, the whole Mega Drive pack, and that's on Onlive today. And it's a good example of we can put anything onto the platform and we can make it available, and we can pretty much create a gaming archive and a gaming library as it expands. And I think that's a lot of fun. I love the ideas that we can bring all of this old content, and in some ways it also meets that demand of people who just want to quickly snack on something now and not get roped into something. So you want 5 minutes of gaming and you go back and you play a 20-year-old game, and it meets that sort of instant engagement but instant drop out again.
If I told you, 10 years ago that there'd be billion-dollar businesses based on 99-cent occasional involvement games, you would have put me in a rubber room and given me a jacket with the sleeves that button in the back. But it's clear that consumers along all strata want to have a different experience, a different product availability, and a different level and condition of engagement. And we have to deliver that, not only to be competitive, but to get a wider audience on what we deliver and how we deliver it.
Sure. Obviously, you're starting to see more competitors enter the market, and we keep hearing rumblings about people looking at opening up cloud gaming as an avenue. Recently, cable companies in America are talking about the potential of adding it to their services. Do you think there's anything that you have as a sort of competitive edge to keep you ahead of emerging companies, emerging technologies? Obviously, you were sort of with Gaikai out there ahead of the pack before anyone else was really even addressing this, and you were the first guys to announce this as sort of a concept. Do you think just being first is enough to keep you ahead of the game, or is anything you're looking at to keep you going and keep you at the top of the pile?
A couple of things. First, it doesn't hurt, but you have to keep innovating, and you have to ensure what you do makes sense for your partners. And the several years we've been out there doing this, it's more than just easy compression. There's a bunch of things to make sure the end user experience in both the gameplay, the game saves, is correct, enjoyable, and accessible by the consumer. So yes, we were out there first. We still believe we're the leaders. I personally welcome competitors into the space because it's more validation. As I said a year ago, it was an if, now it's when and how. And we still believe we're the leaders, but we have to continue to evolve, and embrace new and better things. Otherwise, people will pass us. That's what this business is about.
I think it's also worth noting when you hear all of the cable operators and the carriers talking about getting into this business, they're going to be looking for people to work with. So for us, it's an opportunity as well. And not surprisingly, there's businesses there to be had and built. And what they want to do is, just as they brought phones, TVs, broadband, now they want to bring video games to their customers. And that will be by working with video game companies. So.
And the good news for us, in the past 3 years, we've worked with several of those carrier partners, and we wish to continue working. So we've got a great deal of knowledge of not just business-wise what they're looking for, but technologically how this service integrates into what they do and how they do it.
Sure, and speaking of partners, with Onlive, the ISP aspect has been quite important, as with all cloud gaming. Is that something you're looking to drive further forwards, to try and tie in close with ISPs and get more in sort of on edge networks rather than having your own data centers, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I think we've always done the best we can with the networks. We've always put in place the right kind of deals that make it as efficient as possible for transporting the data as well. So that's been something that happened in the background, and that's always going to be something we focus on and moving forward. And whether it's partnering directly or just working with them as a customer, we're going to continue to work with the ISPs and the carriers to make sure we can deliver data as best as possible.
And sort of from the consumer standpoint, they want the games there. How are you finding the relationship with publishers? Is it easy to sell the service to them, or is it something that's a little bit tricky? Obviously, we've seen the same kind of issues with digital distribution, etc.
Well, again, a lot of it depends on, one, the distributors and the publishers have their own needs from both the business and product and customer interaction. And both geographically and practically, every carrier is a little different in terms of what their needs, what their method of engagement, everything from how you build to how you present, what the branding. And we're ready to embrace all those models because we want to be successful together, but it's definitely not one size fits all.
Yep. I think it's worth noting when we launched 2.5 years ago now, I guess, at E3, we didn't have the play pack. And one of the reasons for that was at the time, even though it had been suggested, it was something that was such a new concept, nobody wanted to talk about the idea of a play pack. It was another year of work with the publishers to get on board with the concept of having a lot of content from different companies in the same bundle. And now it's something they see and they like, and they recognize the value of it.
Right, and again, this, in the linear media world, music and cinema went through the same sort of transition of both business and technology. And now, you don't think anything about having a streaming movie on a tablet, but again, 5 or 6 years ago, it was virtually unheard of. And gaming is going to go through exactly the same kind of transition for the same reason, because the technology enables it, and B, customers want to embrace it and use it that way.
And you recently had I believe it was THQ and the day one releases. Is that from a consumer standpoint, that would seem to be a killer feature, having it in there, and it's something that's obviously bemoaned of digital distribution as well quite frequently. Do you feel that that's something that you really need to draw attention to internally, to bring more consumers onto the service, to say, yeah, we've got this, you can buy it at retail or you can get it from us, you don't have to go anywhere, it's just there on your TV instantly?
I think one of the things we've been looking at is we see the value of the day one releases, and that's also a very well understood model. But there's also a new audience out there that I think is growing, and we've seen the same thing happen with smart devices and tablets. And what are the different markets, and how do you reach these different audiences? And there's another audience out there that isn't so wrapped up in day one releases, and that's the people who aren't necessarily as immediately engaged, but are either fast followers or in some cases not even fast followers, but continue to play. So as well as the day and date releases, we want to look at how do we extend the life of the content in a way that hasn't been done before. And it goes back to what you were talking about, is when you talk about older titles, it doesn't matter whether it's 20 years old or even nowadays 20 days old. A 20-day-old title is dropping off the charts. Yeah. And we want to develop something that makes that 20-day title compelling to people, and compelling to an audience that may not have been worrying about it on day one.
And that enables the publishers to have an additional stream of monetization for older titles, which is not a bad thing for them.
Yep.
And finally, from a sort of external standpoint, is there anything new that we're going to see coming to the service soon, that would sort of not necessarily a relaunch, but something to draw people in again to the service? As well as we were talking about sort of the troubles you've had, something to kind of just push you out there a little bit stronger again.
Well, we launched Sleeping Dogs 2 nights ago, so we're still bringing new content onto the service. That's going to continue. We still have a game pipeline. We're also hoping just people see we're back out, we're talking to people again. We've got the new titles coming up, and you're going to hear more from us over the next few months.
And additionally, you're going to see us appearing on digital devices naturally. So, embedded in, whether it's receivers or other, add-on type devices or tablets, be able to widen not only our distribution, but enable people such as hardware providers to take advantage of what we do easily.
Thank you very much for talking to us today, guys. I hope you have a good rest of the show, and I hope Onlive continues to just strengthen, because it's a really interesting platform and product. We'll be back soon with more news from Eurogamer Expo.